Welcome back to Everyday Economics, the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, president of 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics, the production of America's Talking Network. You can and should subscribe to all of our podcasts at americastalking.com. To support Everyday Economics, make your tax-deductible charitable contributions by clicking the link in the show description. We're recording this episode on Friday, December 15th. And joining me as always, my partner, Dr. Orphe Divounguy, PhD economist. Dr. O, always great to be with you. And let's just jump right into it. We're, less than 11 months away from election day here in the U.S. of A. And certainly, the candidates are taking shape. There's been a lot of interesting debates and discussion about the Republican candidates. And of course, you have an incumbent president in Democrat Joe Biden. He's got some things that are going on. You had posed this question.
He's got a lot going on.
He's got a lot going on.
Oh my God!
You had posed this question to me in a just a text exchange that we had, and the question you proffered was: is housing affordability going to hurt Biden at the polls? And I'll let you start. I think there are a number of things that are going to be affecting Joe Biden at the polls. His current approval rating is relatively low, but go ahead and you tell me what you think and how much housing is going to play into this.
Honestly, I don't know what I think. I basically shared with you an article that was written by the chief economist at Redfin, who happens to be a fellow economist I respect and like. She's just awesome, and she wrote this article where she basically says, look, the labor market is red hot. The unemployment is low. Economic growth is strong. Inflation has moderated. We got inflation down 6 percentage points in a year. That's unbelievable without unemployment increasing. Income inequality has declined for the first time since 2007. So you got a good economy right now. People have jobs. The Fed got inflation down under control. We're even getting the hint of rate cuts in 2024. The soft landing that's never been done is happening. It's unbelievable. And yet, the incumbent president is struggling in the polls. And there's all the vibes, right? Those negative vibes.
Let's put some frame to it. So, the Center Square Voters Voice Poll, the Center Square is the newswire service that Franklin News Foundation operates. And it did a poll of 2,500 Americans, 1,000 verified Republicans, 1,000 verified Democrats, and 500 verified independents. So, I mean, I think it's one of the coolest polls going. Mike Noble from Noble Predictive Insights in Phoenix is our partner on that. And here's what America said in the most recent poll that we did, which would be, just about a month ago. The country somewhat approves of Joe Biden to the tune of 24%, somewhat disapproves 12%, strongly disapproves of Joe Biden in general, 44%. On the economic side, 45% strongly disapprove of what he's got going on and 23% somewhat approve. I mean, yeah, maybe housing. I mean, we talk about housing and the importance that housing plays in just sort of the overall economic picture. It's core. You need air, water, and shelter, right? Food, air, water, and shelter to survive. And, the shelter part's a big piece of your own personal economic puzzle. I'll put it back to you. From a housing standpoint, do you think that the typical American voter is making that connection between the current president, his policies, and, what it costs to rent the average home or to buy the average home in America?
Yeah, I mean, I read this and I thought, man, I didn't think of that, but that's a good point. Home sales are a record low. They haven't been so low in so long. Affordability is at a record high. If you don't own yet, you're a renter, you're struggling. You're trying to get on that ladder. It's hard, Thank God in November, rates fell a little bit, and at the same time, house prices fell a little bit. So, affordability improved a little bit. It might improve a little bit more in 2024. But as of right now, it's a struggle. And then you have these homeowners who have really, really low interest rates and have basically in the best possible financial position, kind of, upset about their golden handcuffs. They're like, oh, well, I kind of wanted to move now, but I can't move because I'm going to have to give up this massive discount I got, this really low payment, and I'm going to have to move into a higher payment. And I don't want to do that. And so it's not cool. I don't like it. And so they're complaining too. And so everybody's complaining about housing these days, and so, I mean, this definitely going to improve in 2024 ahead of the election, but it could be potentially part of the problem for the president.
I think it will and could be, but there are probably some other issues that are getting in the way. I mean, certainly what's going on with immigration and the number of people who've come in to the United States through the southern border, over the past 3 years is putting additional pressure just to keep it sort of inside of this frame, this discussion that we're having about housing. I mean, when you and I have spoken about the realities of housing in the United States, I threw out the number that we're 2 million homes short. You said, sorry, partner, it's more like 4 million. And, if in fact, we have allowed, somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 million people to come into the United States illegally in the last 3 years, how much further does that exacerbate the number that you threw out? So if it was 4 million before, what's the number now, presuming that everybody who's come into the United States decides to stay?
See, I would be sympathetic to that argument, but you have to understand, housing starts also increase a ton, right? So a lot of these immigrants that come in, they also go and work in the trades and construction and all that stuff. And so that helps us. A lot of them also go and work in the labor market and other jobs, and that's actually helped to increase labor supply, which has helped to cool down wage growth, so that we don't have the kind of pressure that would be inflationary, that would cause consumer prices to increase faster. It's actually helped us to bring inflation down. So I'm not completely there with the immigration story yet, but I'll tell you what though. Someone else who's really focused on the labor market, another economist that I respect and follow and like very much, the chief economist at the Burning Glass Institute. He did a little bit of work and he says the growth of the U.S. economy in the last 5 years has been predominantly driven by two sectors, professional and technical services and information, essentially tech and consulting. And so if tech and consulting are really driving growth, everybody else that doesn't work in tech and consulting is probably not all that benefiting from the growth, right? It's also geographically concentrated in New York City, Chicago, Boston, and DC. And so, now we're seeing a little moves to Texas, from California. But basically, the Pacific region, right? You do not, you're omitting a large chunk of the country here. And so if those people haven't really benefited from this growth, well, guess what? They might be a little upset. They might not be feeling too good about the economy because they're not really seeing the gains, right, that everybody else on the coasts are seeing. And so that could be, I think that could be part of the problem, for President Biden going into this next election year.
Well, I don't disagree with that. Again, just sort of staying within the sort of the housing segment. I mean, I have the benefit of traveling all over the country, and I'll tell you, if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, you see a lot of cranes and you see a lot of buildings being built, and presumably, with what we know about the office and sort of this new world relationship that we have with work at work, that these cranes are building buildings that people are going to be living in cities.
Right.
You get outside of the cities and you don't, it's not that you'd be looking for cranes, but you'd be looking for development. That has slowed. And we've talked about that. Builder sentiment is where it's at. If foundations have been poured and plans have been laid, you have builders that are completing homes and they're selling them, but they're having to sell them with some level of concession, either a buy down rate or some other kind of perk to get the keys into somebody's hands.
But you would think that would help those renters, buyers, and they would be quite happy about that. But it's not, and I think the problem is mostly not so much the building in the cities. It's really so much the disparities, the geographic disparity, where basically, you have these coastal markets that are doing better, and then you have this middle of America that hasn't really grown as much or as fast.
I would just say this: it looks very different. It looks very different as you move yourself around the country. Without a doubt. Hey, good discussion as always. Enjoyed it. Let's pull it to a close here. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and dozens of other quality podcasts at americastalking.com.
Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.